Daniel always believed that life on a space station would be full of adventure, but the truth was far more ordinary. He worked as an engineer, fixing ventilation systems, maintaining oxygen lines, and checking power grids. Most days ended with him tired, covered in dust from crawling through maintenance shafts and dreaming of Earth's open skies, which he had not seen for years. The station itself was a strange place. Built between two trading routes, it was considered neutral ground for dozens of species. Humans were only a small part of the population here, but they were respected for their ability to adapt. Merchants, travelers, and diplomats filled the long halls. The air always smelled faintly of metal and recycled oxygen, mixed with spices from alien markets. Daniel's room was small, no larger than a cabin, but it was private. It had a single bed, a desk with scattered tools, and a small screen that flickered with news broadcasts from distant planets. He often spent his evenings repairing broken gadgets for extra credits or sketching designs in his notebook. Tonight, however, he had no plans except to rest. He sat on the edge of his bed, boots half removed, when the lights in his room flickered. At first, he thought it was just another power surge, common in this old station, but then he noticed the hum, a low vibration as if energy was building in the air itself. His hair prickled, his tools rattled on the desk, and the air smelled sharp like lightning before a storm. Daniel frowned and stood, glancing around. Not again, he muttered, wondering if the station's teleport system was malfunctioning. He had seen it happen before, cargo arriving in the wrong section or travelers stumbling out of thin air. But this sound was deeper, stronger. Before he could reach the wall panel, a burst of blue light erupted in the center of his room. Daniel shielded his eyes, stumbling back. The air bent and twisted like rippling water. Then slowly a figure began to form inside the light. His heart pounded. The teleport system was not supposed to lead here. His cabin was private, secured by personal code. No one should be materializing in his room. The figure solidified. A tall shape, wrapped in shimmering armor, collapsed onto the floor. The light vanished with a sharp crack, leaving behind silence and the faint smell of ozone. Daniel froze. On the floor lay someone unlike anyone he had seen before. The armor looked ceremonial, decorated with patterns that shimmered faintly, even without light. But it was damaged. Cracks ran across the surface, and one shoulder plate fell away with a metallic clatter. A faint hiss escaped the suit as if its systems were failing. The figure groaned softly and moved. As the helmet rolled aside, Daniel saw a face. Not human. The skin was pale silver with faint glowing lines running across the cheeks and forehead. The eyes were large, bright, with an inner light, like twin stars reflecting deep emotions. Her hair, if it could be called that, flowed like strands of liquid crystal, shifting slightly as if alive. Daniel's breath caught. He had read about the Xyleran Empire, one of the most powerful alien civilizations in the quadrant. Their rulers were rarely seen by outsiders, and yet lying on the floor of his cabin was a person who could only be one of them. The alien struggled to sit up, her hands trembling as she tried to remove pieces of the broken armor. Daniel hesitated, but instinct pushed him forward. "Wait, don't move too much," he said softly, kneeling beside her. "You're hurt." Her gaze turned to him. Those shining eyes locked onto his, sharp but tired. She said something in a language Daniel didn't understand, her voice soft but commanding. I don't know your language," Daniel admitted, raising his hand slowly to show he meant no harm. "But I can help." The alien seemed to study him for a moment. Then, as if realizing he truly had no weapons, she relaxed slightly. With effort, she tapped a small device on her wrist. A faint tone echoed, and then her next words came in halting but understandable common tongue. "You, human," she said slowly. "This place? Safe?" Daniel nodded quickly. "Yes, this is my room. No one else will come in." Her breathing slowed, though her armor still sparked occasionally. She reached up and pressed at the cracked chest plate. With a hiss, the armor released and fell away in sections. Daniel stared as more of her true form was revealed. Not flesh like humans, but a delicate mixture of luminous skin and intricate lines of bioluminescence that pulsed with life. It was as though the armor had been a shell, hiding what she truly was. "You're not just a soldier," Daniel whispered before he could stop himself. Her lips curved into the faintest smile, though her eyes still held sadness. "Not soldier, Princess Lizara." The word struck him like a shock. A princess, a royal figure from one of the most secretive and feared empires in the galaxy, and she had arrived by accident or design in his small engineer's cabin. Daniel swallowed hard. He wanted to ask 1,000 questions. Why she was here, how she got through the teleport system, why she was alone. But her condition worried him more. The lines of light across her skin flickered weakly, and her breathing grew uneven. "Stay still," he said quickly, reaching for his toolkit. "I'm not a doctor, but I can stabilize damaged circuits. Maybe your suit still has medical systems." Lysera watched him with curiosity as he worked, hands steady even though his mind spun with fear and disbelief. He opened one of the armor's panels and reconnected a sparking wire, giving power back to the small healing unit inside. A soft hum returned and her breathing eased slightly. "You, clever," she said softly, her accent heavy but words clear. Daniel gave a small laugh, nervous but proud. Humans are good at fixing things, even when we don't fully understand them. For a moment, silence filled the room. Only the sound of the machine running and the distant hum of the station's systems could be heard. Lysera looked at him again, and this time her eyes softened. "Trust you," she whispered. Daniel blinked. "Why me?" "Because," she said with a faint smile, "I had no choice. And yet, your hands did not harm." He didn't know what to say. All he knew was that somehow, in one unexpected night, his life had changed. A princess from a mighty empire was in his room, injured, vulnerable, yet still regal. And outside his cabin walls, he realized someone would soon come searching for her. Daniel sat on the floor of his small cabin, still staring at the strange figure before him. Princess Lysera's faint glow reflected off the walls, giving the room an almost dreamlike quality. She was calm now, but her breaths were shallow, her voice tired. He wanted to ask 100 questions at once, but his mind was still trying to catch up. A real princess from the Xyleran Empire was sitting in his room. It felt impossible. Lysera adjusted what was left of her armor, pulling a small broken piece away from her side. Daniel watched carefully, ready to help if she needed, but she seemed determined to do it herself. The broken armor clattered on the floor like glass. Daniel cleared his throat. "Why are you here?" "I mean, in my room, of all places on this station." Lysera's bright eyes lifted to his. "Because this place was not chosen. It was accident. Teleport broken." She paused, as if searching for the right words in his language. "I was fleeing." "Fleeing?" Daniel repeated, leaning closer. She nodded once, the glow of her lines dimming slightly. "There are people who want me gone. People inside my empire. They try to remove me." Daniel's stomach tightened. An assassination attempt? Against royalty? That meant danger far greater than he had imagined. If she was right, her enemies might already be searching the station. "You mean assassins?" he said quietly. Lysera tilted her head, considering his word. Then she gave a small nod. "Yes, assassins." Daniel rubbed his forehead, trying to think. He was just an engineer. He knew about pipes and wires, not politics and interstellar conspiracies. Yet here he was, sitting with someone who carried the weight of an empire on her shoulders. "Why not teleport to your own people?" Daniel asked. "To your guards, your ships?" Her expression darkened. "Because I do not know who is safe. Even my guards. Some may serve my enemy. I had to escape without plan, without direction. I chose random path. And I found you." Her words sent a chill down his spine. She wasn't just lost, she had been betrayed. She couldn't even trust her own empire. Daniel sat back against the wall, thinking, "If they find you here, this whole station could be in danger." Lysera's voice grew softer. "Yes, that is why I must trust you." He blinked at her. "Me? I'm just a maintenance worker." Her faint smile returned. "You are human. Your people are not part of our empire. That makes you safe." Daniel didn't know whether to laugh or panic. A princess of one of the galaxy's most powerful civilizations was trusting him, simply because he was human and had no stake in her empire's politics. But as he looked at her, weak and exhausted yet still holding herself with quiet dignity, he realized she had no one else. "What do you want me to do?" he asked finally. Lysera leaned closer, her glowing eyes steady on his. "Hide me, help me." "Survive." Daniel's heart raced. Hide a princess? Protect her from assassins? If the station authorities found out, he would be thrown in prison, or worse. If her enemies found her first, both of them would likely be killed. But when he thought of leaving her alone, he couldn't do it. Something inside him refused. He sighed. All right, I'll help, but you'll have to follow my lead. This station has hidden paths, places only engineers know about. We can use them. Lysera nodded slowly, her trust clear in her gaze. Daniel stood and began pacing. He needed a plan. First, he had to make sure no one suspected anything. Second, he had to find a place safer than his cabin. Already he felt paranoid, expecting footsteps outside his door. Do you need food, water? Daniel asked, trying to think of basic survival first. Lysera tilted her head, her crystal-like hair shifting softly. Food. Different for my kind. But water? Yes. Daniel fetched a small container from his desk and offered it. She took it carefully, her long fingers brushing his hand. The glow along her skin brightened faintly as she drank, and she gave a small sigh of relief. Thank you, she whispered. Daniel sat again, watching her with cautious curiosity. You said people want you gone. Why? You're a princess, right? Don't you have power? Lysera's smile faded. I have power, but also enemies. Some wish to control my empire for themselves. I stand in their way. Sounds like a coup, Daniel muttered. She didn't understand the word, so he explained. When someone tries to take leadership by force. Lysera nodded slowly. Yes, coup. For a moment, silence filled the room. Daniel felt the weight of her words. This wasn't just about one person's survival. It was about the balance of power in the galaxy. If she fell, her empire could fall into the hands of someone ruthless. He looked at her again, studying the way she sat so calmly despite her exhaustion. She was not weak. She carried herself like someone trained to rule. I don't know why, Daniel admitted softly, but I believe you. Lysera's glowing eyes softened. That is why I smiled, she said quietly. Daniel blinked. Smiled? When I first saw you. You fixed my suit, but you did not fear me. You did not treat me like tool or threat. You treated me like person. That is why. I smiled. Her words warmed him more than he expected. Somehow, despite the danger, he felt connected to her. The night passed slowly. Daniel barely slept. He kept listening for footsteps in the hallway, worried that someone might come searching. Lysera rested on his bed, her glowing patterns dimming as she drifted into a strange, peaceful state of sleep. Daniel sat at his desk, scribbling notes in his pad, trying to list possible hiding spots. Maintenance tunnels, unused cargo bays, old docking ports. There were many places he knew others wouldn't look. But each idea carried risks. The station was busy, full of different species. Rumors traveled fast. If someone spotted Lysera, they would ask questions. Suddenly, the quiet was broken by a faint sound. Daniel froze. Outside his cabin, heavy footsteps echoed in the corridor. He glanced at Lysera, who stirred but didn't wake. He crept to the door and pressed his ear against it. The voices were muffled, but he caught fragments in common tongue. Searching every section. The high-value target. Report if seen. Daniel's stomach dropped. They were already looking for her. He returned quickly to his desk, pretending to work in case someone entered. The footsteps grew louder, stopping outside his cabin. Daniel's pulse hammered in his ears. A knock echoed. Daniel swallowed hard, forcing his voice steady. Yes? The door hissed open and two figures stepped inside. Station security officers, tall and stern. They scanned the room quickly, eyes landing on Daniel. Engineer Daniel Cross? One asked. Yes, Daniel said, trying to sound casual. What's wrong? We are conducting a sweep. There has been a teleport malfunction, unregistered arrival on this level. Did you see anything unusual tonight? Daniel's throat went dry. He glanced at his bed, empty. Lysera was gone, his heart leapt. Somehow in those few moments she had disappeared. No, Daniel said carefully. Nothing unusual. Just finished my shift. The officer stared at him for a long moment. Then one nodded. Very well. If you see anything, report it immediately. They left without another word, the door sliding shut behind them. Daniel exhaled shakily, wiping sweat from his forehead. He turned toward his bed, expecting to find it empty. Instead, he saw Lysera emerging from the shadows near the ceiling vent, her glowing lines faint. She dropped lightly back onto the floor, her expression calm. Daniel gaped at her. How did you— I hid, she said simply. He shook his head in disbelief, half amazed, half terrified. You're going to get me killed, you know that? But Lysra only gave him a faint smile. You chose to help. Now we are together. Daniel couldn't argue. The choice was made, and outside his door the hunt was beginning. The corridors of the station never felt the same again. Daniel had walked them countless times as an engineer, his steps casual, his mind on tools and repairs. But now every flicker of light, every distant footstep, every whisper of voices in the halls made his heart race. He was not walking alone anymore. Lysra moved silently at his side, her glowing patterns dimmed to avoid notice. She carried herself with grace, but he could tell she was weary. The teleport accident and the betrayal that forced her here had drained her. Stay close, Daniel whispered as they slipped into a narrow service passage. The walls were lined with pipes warm with recycled air. Few people ever came this way except workers like him. Lysra tilted her head, her crystal-like hair shifting faintly. You know these paths well. Daniel gave a tight smile. I built half of them. Or fixed them anyway. No one knows this station's guts better than an engineer. They moved in silence for several minutes. Daniel's ears picked up faint noises above. Boots on metal flooring. Security or assassins, he couldn't tell. Both were dangerous. They reached a junction. Daniel crouched, pulling open a floor panel. Below was a dark shaft leading down into the station's maintenance tunnels. This way, he said, lowering himself inside. Lysra followed without hesitation, her movements surprisingly quiet. Once inside, Daniel sealed the panel above them, plunging the shaft into darkness. He pulled a small lamp from his belt, casting a soft glow. The tunnels stretched like veins beneath the station, cramped and twisting. Daniel knew them better than anyone. He led the way, crawling through narrow sections, climbing ladders and guiding her across rusting metal walkways. For Lysra, it must have been strange. She was used to palaces, starships, and the wide halls of power, yet she followed him without complaint. Finally, they stopped in a small chamber where old machines hummed faintly. Daniel wiped sweat from his brow and checked his handheld scanner. No signals nearby. We can rest here a while, he said. Lysra sat gracefully on a crate, her glowing eyes watching him. You hide well, you're kind. You are small in number but clever. Daniel gave a short laugh. That's one way to put it. We can't match other species in strength or technology, so we get by using whatever we can. Lysra's smile was faint, but genuine. It may be why I survived. Because I found a human. Daniel felt heat rise in his face but pushed it aside. Don't give me too much credit. I'm just making this up as I go. The rest was short-lived. A sudden noise echoed through the tunnels, a faint metallic clang. Daniel stiffened, switching off his lamp. The chamber dropped into darkness, broken only by the faint glow of Lysra's patterns. He pressed a finger to his lips. Lysra nodded silently. The sound came again, closer this time. Someone else was in the maintenance shafts. Daniel's mind raced. Assassins. He grabbed Lysra's arm gently, guiding her toward a side tunnel. They moved quickly but carefully, trying not to make a sound. Behind them, the clanging grew louder. Voices in a harsh, guttural language carried through the tunnels. Whoever they were hunting. Daniel's heart pounded. He knew these passages twisted like a maze, but assassins could still corner them if not careful. He had to think. He pulled Lysra into a small alcove and whispered, "Stay here. Don't move." Her eyes narrowed. "What will you do?" "Distract them," he said simply. Before she could protest, Daniel slipped out, crawling through another tunnel until he reached a junction. He dug through his bag quickly, pulling out a handful of spare parts he always carried. Wires, a small power cell, and a broken maintenance drone. With shaking hands, he connected the cell to the drone, rerouting the circuit. The machine sparked, then came to life with a faint whir. Daniel set it on the floor and gave it a shove. The drone rolled down the tunnel, its lights flickering. The noise echoed loudly in the cramped space. Almost instantly, the hunters' voices shifted. Their footsteps followed the decoy, rushing toward it. Daniel let out a breath of relief. He crawled back to Lysra. She was waiting, her eyes wide with worry. "You returned," she whispered. "Of course I did," Daniel said with a grin. "Let's move before they realize it's a trick." Hours passed as they moved deeper into the station's hidden areas. Daniel led her through forgotten storage bays and disused docking tunnels. Lysra followed without question, though her exhaustion grew clearer. Finally, they reached an old hydroponics chamber, long abandoned after a system failure. Vines and dead plants clung to the walls, and the air smelled faintly of mold. But it was isolated, and Daniel knew no one came here anymore. "This should be safe," he said, setting down his pack. "At least for now." Lysera sank onto a bench, her glowing patterns flickering faintly. Daniel crouched in front of her, concern etched on his face. "You need rest," he said. She nodded weakly. "Yes, but danger's still close," Daniel frowned. "They won't stop, will they?" "No," she whispered. "Not until I am gone. My death means their victory." Her words hung heavy in the air. Daniel sat beside her, staring at the floor. "You know," he said slowly, "humans have a saying, where there's life, there's hope. If you're still breathing, there's still a chance to fight back." Lysera turned her head, studying him with quiet wonder. "Your people. Always hope. Even when odds are impossible," Daniel shrugged. "It's either that or give up. And giving up doesn't fix anything." She gave a faint smile. "Perhaps. That is why I trust you." The moment of calm didn't last. A sudden sharp crack split the silence, the sound of metal tearing. Daniel's head snapped up. Someone was cutting through the sealed door of the hydroponics chamber. He jumped to his feet, grabbing Lysera's hand. "They found us." The door sparked as glowing lines spread across its surface. Someone outside was using advanced tools to breach it. Daniel's mind raced. The room was a trap. Only one exit, and it was about to be destroyed. He scanned quickly, eyes landing on a large vent near the ceiling. "There," he said, pointing. Lysera followed his gaze. "Too high." "Not if I boost you," Daniel said. The door screeched, metal warping. Time was running out. Daniel dragged a broken crate beneath the vent and motioned for her to climb. She hesitated only a moment before stepping onto it. He cupped his hands, boosting her upward. She grabbed the edge of the vent and pulled herself in with surprising strength. "Hurry!" she urged, reaching down. Daniel jumped, grabbing her hand. She pulled him up just as the door gave way with a deafening crash. They crawled through the vent, the sounds of armed footsteps filling the chamber below. For what felt like hours, they crawled through vents and tunnels, always moving, always chased by distant echoes of their hunters. Daniel's arms ached, his throat dry, but he pushed on. Finally, they dropped into another maintenance corridor. Daniel leaned against the wall, panting. Lysera knelt beside him, her glowing eyes filled with concern. "You risked yourself again," she said softly. Daniel gave a tired grin. "That's what humans do. We risk things for people we believe in." Lysera's gaze softened, her voice barely above a whisper. "Then I must not fail. Not after what you've done." Before Daniel could reply, a sharp sound cut through the air. A voice amplified through the station's speakers. "All personnel, report. High-value target located." "Secure all sections," Daniel's heart sank. They were tightening the net. Lysera's glowing patterns brightened faintly, her expression calm but resolute. "They know we live, but we will not be caught." Daniel straightened, determination in his eyes. "Then we'll have to be smarter than them. And if there's one thing humans are good at, it's surprising people who underestimate us." The hunt was far from over, and the next move would decide everything. The station seemed alive with tension. Every corridor, every door, every corner could hide danger. Daniel and Lysera moved cautiously, their footsteps echoing softly in the long, empty halls. The announcements over the station's speakers were relentless. "All personnel. High-value target located. Report sightings immediately. Security is authorized to engage." Daniel clenched his jaw. Their pursuers were methodical, using both security protocols and independent assassins to find them. Every minute counted. "We need a plan," Daniel whispered as they ducked into a side maintenance tunnel. "We can't keep running forever." Lysera's glowing patterns flickered, a sign of her exhaustion. "Your people, humans, you are brave. I trust you. But even bravery has limits." Daniel shook his head. "Bravery without thinking is useless. But cleverness can beat strength every time." Lysera tilted her head, her luminous eyes watching him. "Then we must be clever." Daniel scanned the tunnel. Several small vents ran parallel above, and there were loose access panels along the walls. He paused, formulating a plan. "Here's what we do," he whispered. "We split up but not far. I'll create a diversion with some old drones and the station's emergency power circuits. That will draw them away long enough for you to reach a secure chamber I know of. Then I'll meet you there." Lysera nodded. "I will move quickly. Trust in your plan." "Always," Daniel replied, though his heart raced. He set to work, connecting a series of spare wires and control circuits to a small fleet of old maintenance drones. Each drone powered up, lights flickering erratically. Daniel set their courses to roll down the main corridors where the pursuers were likely to be. As predicted, within minutes, alarms blared further down the station. The drones sparked and rolled, creating chaos. Security teams rushed toward the noise, leaving the maintenance tunnels mostly unguarded. Daniel motioned for Lysra to move. She dashed quietly along a hidden path he had used countless times as a young engineer. Daniel stayed behind for a moment, adjusting a timer on one of the circuits. When it triggered, a secondary alarm would explode farther along the main hall, keeping the pursuers distracted. Lysra's journey was tense. She moved through corridors she had never seen before, following Daniel's directions precisely. Her glowing skin was dim, blending into the shadows, making her almost invisible. As she moved, she thought about Daniel. A human, so ordinary in the galaxy's vast expanse, yet so clever, brave, and unpredictable. She realized that humans were underestimated far too easily. Their creativity, determination, and resourcefulness were qualities no high-tech weapon could replace. Finally, she reached the secure chamber Daniel had described. The door was old but reinforced with a manual lock system that no one outside would know how to open quickly. She set her fingers on the control panel and manipulated it with ease. The door slid open, and she entered, safe for the moment. Inside, she found the chamber equipped with emergency life support systems and an old terminal connected to the station's network. It was enough to monitor security patterns and communicate secretly. She allowed herself a deep breath, knowing Daniel was somewhere nearby, risking himself for her safety. Meanwhile, Daniel moved through the main corridors, his heart pounding. The drone's chaos was working, but he needed more time. He spotted a patrol approaching from the next junction, armed and ready. Quickly, he ducked into an old storage room and activated a hidden control panel. The lights flickered and cut off in the corridor, plunging the patrol into darkness. Daniel tossed a small, harmless smoke device to the far end. The patrol, confused and panicked, followed the distraction. Daniel slipped past, moving silently. He knew the station better than anyone. Every maintenance shaft, every hidden panel, every ventilation duct was familiar to him. He used them all, weaving a path that kept him one step ahead of danger. But the real test was ahead. The leader of the assassins, a ruthless alien general from Lysra's empire, had tracked Daniel's signal and suspected the princess was nearby. This general was clever, but Daniel had an advantage no one expected: human unpredictability. Daniel reached the corridor near the secure chamber. The general and his elite team were stationed outside, waiting, confident that any human could not outsmart them. Daniel paused, considering the situation. He had a small drone left, but this time he used it differently. He programmed it to simulate Lysra's biosignatures while hiding himself. The general's team would think she was inside the vented path, and they rushed to intercept. With the general distracted, Daniel crawled silently along a side shaft, reaching the chamber just as Lysra finished securing the lock. "Daniel!" she whispered, relief clear in her voice. "Shh," he said, placing a hand on her shoulder. "We're not safe yet." Outside, the sounds of the elite team scrambling echoed faintly, their footsteps confused by the decoy. "Your plan?" "Humans, always unpredictable," Lysra whispered, smiling faintly. Daniel allowed himself a brief grin. "We survive because we adapt. That's what makes humans strong, even if we aren't the strongest." Minutes later, Daniel accessed the terminal in the secure chamber. He tapped into the station's surveillance system and traced the general's movements. With a few quick adjustments, he could guide security protocols to trap the general's team in one of the maintenance bays temporarily. "Cover your eyes," he said to Lysra as he activated the sequence. Outside, doors sealed and alarms redirected. The general and his team were caught, confused and trapped until station security could arrive. Lysra's glow brightened faintly. You saved us." "Both of us," Daniel shrugged. "I told you humans are clever. You just needed to trust one." Lysra's smile was radiant now, not from relief alone, but from respect. "Not just clever and brave. And kind. You risked your life for me." Daniel shook his head. "It's not just about bravery. It's about what's right. I couldn't let them kill you. Not after everything I've seen tonight." They shared a quiet moment, the tension of the hunt slowly lifting. Outside, the station began returning to normal. Security would take care of the captured assassins. Lysera would be safe, at least for now. With the immediate danger gone, Lysera and Daniel moved to a less hidden part of the station. Lysera contacted a loyal faction of her empire using the secure terminal. She explained the assassination attempt and Daniel's role in helping her survive. Messages went out to ships and allies loyal to her, preparing for her safe return to her home planet. Daniel watched as she worked, impressed by her composure and intelligence. She commanded respect not with weapons alone, but with the dignity and wisdom that made her a true ruler. Finally, she turned to him. "Daniel, your people, your courage and your thinking, they saved me. I will never forget this. My empire will never forget what humans can do." Daniel smiled, feeling the exhaustion of the last tense hours. "I just did what I could. That's all any human can do." Lysera shook her head. "No, you did more than that. You showed what humans are capable of. Creativity, courage, loyalty. We saw it tonight." As the first lights of a new space day illuminated the station, Daniel and Lysera stood together in the observation deck. The stars outside were countless and bright, a reminder of the vastness of the galaxy. Lysera's ship would arrive soon to take her home, but for this moment they shared quiet peace. "Daniel," she said softly, "thank you. Truly." He shrugged, smiling faintly. "I guess sometimes ordinary people end up doing extraordinary things." She returned his smile, her eyes glowing warmly. "Then maybe the galaxy needs ordinary people more than it realizes." A soft hum announced the arrival of her shuttle. Lysera activated a small communicator. "I will return soon. And humanity will have allies in my empire. You have my word." Daniel nodded. "I'll be here. Keep your people safe." She stepped into the shuttle, turning back one last time. Her smile spoke more than words ever could. A promise of trust, alliance, and respect. The doors closed. The shuttle lifted, disappearing into the stars. Daniel watched until the lights of her ship faded, feeling a strange mix of relief and admiration. He returned to his quarters, tired but alive. That night he reflected on everything that had happened, the danger, the chase, the trust placed in him by someone so powerful. He realized that human ingenuity and courage, even in the smallest form, could make a difference in a galaxy filled with powers far beyond comprehension. And for Daniel, that was more than enough. The galaxy had changed tonight, and humanity had shown that even a single human, clever and brave, could tip the balance in ways no one expected.